Baylor basketball loses a former four-star recruit, and inquiring minds are starting to wonder, will the Bears have enough players to field the basketball team next year?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Bears fans. Welcome to a bonus episode, breaking news edition of Locked On Baylor. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. Appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. The breaking news of the day is that Jason Asemota is entering the transfer portal and will be leaving Baylor. At least that's what it looks like. Asemota came in as a freshman this year. He was part of this greatest freshman class that Baylor had ever brought in, with VJ Edgecombe and Rob Wright stealing a ton of the headlines, both, before their time on campus and their time on the court. But Jason Asemota was one that looked like a diamond in the rough, top 20 prospect at his position, high four-star guy, played at this elite prep school in Arizona. Looked like it was going to be one that a lot of teams were going to wish they had, right? One of those where he committed early, and so his stock didn't go up when it probably should have. Athletic 6'8" wing, looked like a guy who's going to be able to score inside and out with a smooth shooting stroke, rebounding ability, guard a couple different positions. Definitely a guy who could serve Baylor for a couple of years versus, VJ Edgecombe was going to come in for one. And it looks like Jason Asemota is only going to play for 1 year. He did not get the playing time I think he expected this year. He didn't get the playing time that a lot of fans were hoping he would get in the middle of the season when the Bears got thin. And when the Bears got thin, they didn't budge on their stance on Jason Asemota. He continued to not play, to be on the bench. And I'm not going to kill them for that. Some guys, even in 2025, that are highly touted prospects, need a year. And that's tough for a lot of fans to realize, myself included. Sometimes it is more than a year for them to get going in college basketball. And that's probably the case for Jason Asemota. And he's about to start somewhere new, start over somewhere else. But again, he was someone that you hoped as a fan to get more out of this year. Only played about 6 minutes per game. That was inflated by some of those games where he had to play 10, 12 minutes towards the middle of the season. But averages a point and a half, a rebound and a half, shot at 33%. So one that stings, to be totally honest with you, because, not going off the numbers that he put out this year, I thought Jason Asemota was going to be a pretty good player for this team for 2 or 3 seasons. And that's not just because he's a Massachusetts guy. No, I really liked his tape out of high school. I love the kind of versatility he could have brought to them, and was not stunned that it was going to take a year for him to get going. But in college basketball in 2025, when you have a high four-star guy who does not get much of a look in games his freshman year, that's it. That's how it goes. This is the era of NIL and transfer portal. And Jason Asemota is going to test those waters. Obviously a guy who had no shortage of offers out of high school, but this hurts Baylor. I know there were a bunch of people saying yesterday, you can't count on Langston to be out there playing the whole season, and so it's okay. And I totally understand that. I know that he's had his injury history, but I said in that podcast yesterday, in terms of your rotation guys that could come back. Now, I forgot to mention, I mistook Jalen Celestine because he does have a medical red shirt, so he has the ability to come back. But it's Celestine, Rob Wright, Josh Ojamuna, who you're hoping to get back maybe towards the end of next year. I mean, that was a pretty miraculous recovery by Jonathan Chamwa-Chachua with the same injury, essentially, in the same week of the year. And you got him back 51 weeks later. That was pretty miraculous. I don't know if you can expect that from Josh Ojamuna. You might not get anything from him next year. Marino Dubravcic and Jason Asemota. and Langston Love was the other one. Now you are down at least 2.5 of those guys before we even know what Rob Wright is doing. Don't be surprised if Rob Wright is testing the NBA draft waters. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Rob Wright enters the transfer portal and declares for the draft and does one of those things where he doesn't hire an agent and is literally getting as much feedback as possible, money-wise, draft-wise. Don't be surprised at that. I don't know the figures, but he's not one of the highest paid player on this team. And he was certainly better than a lot of guys who were paid more than him. Just based off, the price of what you have to bring in, or the price you have to pay to bring in guys from the transfer portal, guys of Jeremy Roach's ilk. We're in a situation where we're going to have a John Calipari type of press conference, man. Went to talk to the team, and there was no team. Jason Asemota was going to be a big part of this team next year. And if he had made enough of a jump in the summer, he could have been a starter next year. And now he's leaving. This is not great, guys. I know it's the early days of the offseason, and Scott's going to bring guys in the transfer portal, but you didn't exactly have a robust, high school recruitment this year. Tunde Yesufu's a damn good player as a 5-star, but you basically brought in one guy, and Cole Pete didn't come here. And now you're losing the guys that are already on your roster. Again, right now, in terms of actual rotation guys that have not entered the transfer portal and can come back next year and aren't rehabbing a major injury, it's Rob Wright and Marino Dubravcic. Is that what you're building around? Something's up here. Something's up. And maybe it's just the way that 2025 college basketball is. Langston Love leaves in the portal. It stinks. But as I said on that show, it's like sometimes that happens. Jeremy Roach did it at Duke. Clearly, from what he said about Duke, there's no real hard feelings. It was a logjam. He wasn't going to be able to play his position. But, you play 4 years there, you go and try something else. Langston Love, same thing. Not much you could do about that as a program. But when you just brought in this 4-star freshman, and he's fed up after a year based on the playing time and how he projects apparently to be in the future for this team, that's a miss. Because trust me, this coaching staff was relying on Jason Asemota being here next year and possibly beyond. That was something they were penciling into their plans for next season. This is a wrench in their plans. So I don't know what exactly the pinpoint thing is, but all is not right within the walls of Baylor basketball right now. I'm not saying it's untenable. I'm not saying anything about the coach before anyone gets on me, but something is just not passing the sniff test here. We heard about drama during the season. We never hear about that in Scott Drew's locker rooms. And now in the first 2 days of the offseason, 2 guys you were probably counting on and potentially counting on to be starters for next year are out the door in the transfer portal, including one that you got an early commitment from as a stud high school player. It's not great news right now. And I know, again, one last thing to close it out. I know a lot of you are going to say, whoa, 1.5 a game. We don't need that guy. I implore you to look at who's coming back on the roster and tell me about all the guys they don't need to come back. Langston Love, you want to deal with you want to point to the injury history. That's one thing. And I understand that one. But this is not just, we'll just get another Jason Asemota. Because it's not like that. When you're trying to build a program through continuity, which I think everyone at this point agrees that Baylor needs to do, to have guys who are on the team for more than a season, to lose a former 4-star guy after 1 year that you were developing in your program, that's a big loss. I think this is a bigger loss than the Langston Love one for that reason. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. We're bringing you here every day. Exclusively Baylor sports content with the competition withering away. we're the number one source for Baylor sports news that's not tied into the university. And we're damn proud of that. So leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're up here on YouTube, because this is a breaking news segment. We're going to have a lot of these, both good and bad, with the transfer portal and football transfer portal, spring transfer portal opening up soon. There's going to be a ton of it. So you don't want to miss any of it. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We've got a Wicker Wednesday tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit of Asemota. We'll talk a little bit of Langston Love and the front row seat that Sydney had to the biggest college basketball story in America right now. You won't want to miss that. It's coming up tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.